Due to COVID, the world has become a different place. As teachers and educationists and students, it has hit the core of what we do, teaching and learning. Even those of us who were used to face teaching and learning have become dependent on online materials, whether creating them or using those created by others. So, when we are using and creating so much of online content, don't you think we should consider the important aspect of licensing of the content? How are the materials we are using off the net licensed? What are the different licenses we can use? Who is responsible for these licenses? To answer these and similar questions, let me take you a little over 2 decades back when internet was just starting to become popular and people had begun to explore the diverse possibilities it provided. One thing internet did right away was provide a means to share with the whole world. But copyright got in the way. What internet enabled, copyright forbid. Let us understand some important aspects of copyright. 1. Copyright is automatic. All rights reserved. The moment you create, that content is copyright. Hence, all content on the web is copyright unless it is stated otherwise. Copyrighted materials cannot be copied and used without permission. Also, a copyright is valid for a certain limited number of years. After that period, the work moves into public domain and becomes freely accessible for use in diverse ways. You can republish it, make a film, a comic book, translate it, abridge it, adapt it, use it as you like it. Internet made it possible for non-commercial publication of public domain works. That meant that materials that were in the public domain or where copyright expired can be copied and placed on the web for the world to access. Eric Eldred in the 1990s made a career of making works available as they passed into public domain, copying them and placing them on the web. Now imagine if the copyright period kept getting extended. In US, in 1790, the first Copyright Act started with copyright lasting for 14 years from publishing plus an extension of another 14 years. In 1909, it was changed to 28 with further extension of 28 years totaling 56. While in 1976, the copyright term was changed to 50 years after death of the author or 75 years when the copyright is company owned. In 1998, a new Soni Bono Copyright Term Extension Act was brought to the Congress that sought to increase the term of the copyright for every work in US, even those already copyrighted, for an additional 20 years, hence extending the period to 70 years after death. This act was also jokingly called the Mickey Mouse Protection Act, since the original Mickey Mouse cartoon, Steamboat Willie, would have come into public domain if it was not for the act. Hence, the CTEA was driven by commercial interests. Stanford law professor Lawrence Lessig believed the new law was unconstitutional and that the end of the copyright term is important, since it marks the moment the work moves into the public domain for everybody to use for any purpose without permission. Lessig, representing the web publisher Eldred, challenged the constitutionality of the act. The case, known as Eldred versus Ashcroft, went all the way to the US Supreme Court. Eldred lost the case in 2003. As the case was being fought in courts, Lessig and others came to recognize that sharing and access was important. There was a need for authors to be able to publish on more flexible terms while keeping their copyright. In order to realize the full potential of the internet, they came up with the idea and created a non-profit organization called Creative Commons, and in 2002 released a set of free public licenses that an author could choose for his or her own creative works instead of the default all rights reserved of copyright. Though Creative Commons started in the US, the licenses were intended to be used by creators all over the world. The CC licenses were consistent with the copyright law while allowing authors to give permission to reuse, remix, repurpose and revise in domains such as textbook publishing, academic research, documentary films and many more. Restrictive copyright rules continue to inhibit creation, access and remix. CC tools are helping to solve this problem. CC is proving a global standard for open licensing. The CC licenses also promote the culture of collaboration and sharing. Do you know that today we have over 1.6 billion works that carry the CC licenses or are under public domain? These range from educational content to images to videos to music and works of art to scientific and research data. The CC licenses are used by many of the popular sites on the web like the YouTube, Flickr, Zenocanto, Wikimedia, Vimeo, etc. Over the years, the concept of open that started with open software spread to content and a global coalition was formed around Creative Commons and open licensing. This involved people working on open policies mandating open access to content, data and research, and creators who shared a core set of values. You could be in this movement through open access, open science movement, open data, open innovation, open educational resources, and not the least crowdsourcing, even without a formal connection with Creative Commons. The core value of the global commons are based around community, sharing and collaboration. When we share, everybody wins, the giver, the receiver, as well as the community. The Creative Commons licenses gave you a choice. Instead of saying, I created this material and you cannot use it, or you can use it only after getting my permission, you can actually choose to say, I have created this material and I give you permission through the Creative Commons licenses to use the content. You just need to attribute me, not seek my permission. The creator can also choose under what conditions he is sharing the content. There is a philosophical connotation too when you decide to share. It shows you are open, willing to collaborate and to share. Creative Commons as an organization is a small non-profit with regular and contract staff working from diverse places in the world. The organization is responsible for driving the Creative Commons licensing tools as well as the open movement. Hence, today when we say Creative Commons, we mean the licenses, the global movement and the organization. In case you feel like us that sharing is important, then join us. Let us take the open movement forward together. You can start using CC licenses on your creative work. You could use the license chooser on our website to license your work. You could decide to download and use Creative Commons licensed content. You can use the search engine to find openly licensed content. If you would like to join us formally, you can apply to become a member of the CC Global Network or CCGN and work on any of the diverse platforms across education, culture, science, copyright reform, government policy and other sectors, and contribute as much time as you can. To learn more about creating and using openly licensed content, you could register in the formal Creative Commons certificate course for educators and librarians. Believe in us and join us. Thanks.